I realized while I was lying in Moorhill that you only have one life to live. I'm not being given the green light to drive yet. Spending too much time with people who actually, at the end of the day, don't really care about you. It's all about the money.
Welcome, and once again, welcome to another episode of our podcast, Your Call. My name is Samantha, and as you can tell, my fellow co-host Maps is not with me. She will be back for our last episode, our finale, which is just in a jiffy. But today in the studio, I have brother Stan Partington. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
So would you mind telling us a bit about yourself?
I don't mind, absolutely. I guess our viewers want to know the reason why I'm here. And basically, in a nutshell, I had a stroke, and I will be chatting to you about my experience, my journey up until now, and I am also a member of the Atlasville Seventh-day Adventist Church, where I currently am a member, and I'm very happy to be here on your podcast, and I hope that what I share will also help some people out there, perhaps, who have experienced what I've experienced, and also encourage people that it's never too late to keep going, no matter what you've experienced, that God is always with you.
So you were talking about the fact that you had a stroke, right? So please tell us a story of how your faith was tried.
I would like to take your viewers back to last year, 13th of March, 2024. I woke up like any normal day. I had things to do, and it was a very busy day. That time of the year was our financial year end, and we were busy crunching numbers, and we had to get numbers in. There were targets that were to be met, and like any other day, on Teams calls the whole day, meeting after meeting, spreadsheets had to be sent through, and by late afternoon, about 5ish, I decided to call it a day, and I went and did my exercise. I'm a cyclist. I've been a cyclist for many, many years. So I decided to de-stress, and I was on my trainer for about 2 hours, and I felt fine. There was no problem. I felt good. I managed to get through the session, and finished, and I felt all good. I had a shower, had dinner, and then went to bed. Next morning, I woke up. I didn't feel any different. I felt fine. I felt as though I had slept enough. I had no headaches, no nothing. I had breakfast, and at about quarter to 7, my son-in-law arrived at the gate to drop off our grandchildren. They came in, and I remember greeting them and everything, and I then went to my study to start the day, work. I arrived at my desk, And all I can remember is that I was prepping for the day, and getting all my things ready, the computer, my spreadsheets and everything. And all of a sudden, I reached down to grab my phone. And I just felt this wave of warmth, and this blackness sort of came over my head. And I knew I was in trouble because I felt that I couldn't lift my arm. And I tried to get up, and I walked to the door, to the study door, and I called my wife. Fortunately, she was at home, and when she heard my voice, she recognized that I was in trouble. And she came to the door. By this time, I was kind of in a crunched position. I couldn't keep myself up. And she basically directed me to one of the study chairs. And from that point, my life as I knew it then had changed. I had difficulty in speaking. I couldn't, I had no peripheral vision, and everything around me was like happening in slow motion. I could hear the voices. I could hear that Vanessa was calling the paramedics, and I knew that I was in trouble, and that I knew that this was a test for me going forward. And the only thing I could think of was, God, please save me. That's all I could remember.
Right. So, was there anything going through your head when you got to the hospital or when you were in the paramedic vehicle, or what was going on there?
Yeah, that's a good question, because you've experienced this attack on your body, and you really don't know actually what's happening and what's going on. The paramedics were very quick to respond. They arrived in minutes. They kind of quickly assessed me and said to my wife, they think that it's a stroke and that they should get me to the hospital immediately. Now, for our listeners out there, there is a golden hour for a person who has had a stroke to get medical assistance very quickly. So you basically have an hour, because then they kind of administer a drug, I suppose, that could help you to be able to lessen the challenges that you would have, and that you would be able to kind of reverse some of the effect of the stroke. And they were like I said, they were very speedy to get there. In the ambulance, it's the first time I've been in an ambulance, so the experience was kind of very different for me, because you got these monitors around you. You've got the paramedic who's putting drips in you, and basically trying to calm you down and say, don't panic, we'll get you to the hospital. Because you do panic. You do panic, and it's really not a nice feeling. And And all during this time, while I was in the ambulance, I would have these sort of same sort of mini feelings of when I did have the stroke. This warm feeling that would come over. It would actually start in my hands. It would sort of move up my arms and then over my shoulders and into my head. And I would kept praying while I was in the ambulance and said, God, please, not now. Not now. I'm not ready. And I remember them having to. They were on their way to Glenwood Hospital in Benoni, and while we were on the way there, they phoned to say they're coming, and then Glenwood Hospital basically said to them, "You can't bring him here. We're at full capacity." So then they had to reroute the ambulance to Linmed Hospital. But like I said, they still reacted very quickly. I got to the hospital within the hour. But sadly, the Linmed Hospital has a policy where they first have to book you in, and then they send you, if they suspect it to be a stroke, they first send you for an MRI scan. And that took another hour. So by the time I came back to the emergency rooms, they administered the drug, and unfortunately, it was too late. And basically, then I was wheeled into ICU from there on. At that point, I had major difficulty in talking. My right arm was completely paralyzed, my right leg was paralyzed because the stroke that I had basically affected the whole of my right side.
So what was going through your head? Was family, of course, family was visiting, like, could you hear what they were saying, or what was?
So I went into ICU, and the afternoon it was extremely busy. I was being probed with needles, and they were scanning me and basically putting in the necessary drips and putting me onto monitors so they could basically monitor me. I remember that when I was in the emergency room, my sister-in-law came. My wife Vanessa was already in the ward with me. In the ward with me. I remember Pastor Dion briefly coming into the room, and my dad also briefly coming into the room. I could hear everything around me, and I could hear people, what they were saying and everything, but I couldn't react at that time with either communicating with him. I basically almost spoke in one-word syllables just to try and make myself heard or understood. So yeah, it was extremely difficult in the ICU. I had the first 2 days. I cannot recall much what happened and who was there, but I remember there were a number of visitors, family visitors, friends, and then from there I came in on the Thursday, the 14th of March, and I was there until the Sabbath afternoon when I was wheeled into a general ward.
Right. So in total, how many days were you in hospital before you recovered?
Um, with stroke patients, it's very difficult because every person kind of experiences the stroke um, differently. Um, for the listeners out there, basically there are three types of um, strokes. There's what they call a TIA, um, which is basically a mini stroke. So it's a stroke that you would have indicators that would basically prompt you to say, listen, you must take care of your body because something greater might happen further down the line. I had what they call a CVA. Um, basically, what happens then is a clot goes into the brain, um, and basically it sits in the brain and it causes oxygen not to reach certain parts of your brain. And with the brain not receiving the oxygen, basically those nerves um, basi- um, nerves die. And that is the problem with the stroke that I had. It affected my cerebellum as well as the brain stem, which caused quite a bit of damage. And I was in the hospital for, like I said, they moved me into the hospital the Thursday. The Monday was in the normal general ward. Then, unfortunately, the Monday afternoon, while I was in the hospital, I had another stroke. I had a second stroke, and that's the stroke that basically affected my speech, my cognitive, my memory, my balance, and my peripheral vision and depth perception. So I still have a huge amount of challenges when it comes to my speech. I tend to in the morning, so I'm glad this recording is done now.
Yes.
Because my speech seems to be better, but as the day goes on, I get tired and I've got to slow down with the way in which I speak. It becomes a challenge for me. I start slurring. And so unfortunately, I had the second stroke. Then I was sent to Moore Hill Clinic, which is a step-down clinic. It's a clinic that takes on patients that have had brain injury, neurological problems or challenges, and they work specifically to help you to rehabilitate. So I went to Moore Hill Clinic on the 20th of March, and I was there for 7 weeks in Moore Hill Clinic.
So 2 strokes in one go.
Yes.
Was it the same type of stroke?
My attending specialist basically said to me that the second stroke was the stroke that did the most damage to my brain. And that was exactly the same experience. If you're talking about experience, I experienced the same experience as what I had when I was at home with a stroke. Yeah.
Right. So how did this season of your life affect your relationships?
Sure. That's a very, very good question. When you've had something so um, so so difficult that you've basically, if you've had something challenge you the way it did challenge me, um, you realize that your life is so short that anything can happen to you at any time. It doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't matter your color, your culture. Doesn't everybody can go through what I've experienced, and I've seen it, that it has been like that. And um, I realized while I was lying in Moorhill that you only have one life to live, and your relationships with the people that are closest to you are so valuable and precious. I realized then, because when I went into the emergency room, I still remember saying to Vanessa, I said to her that I'm never going back to the work that I did, because the work that I did, and taking a few steps back, I was under tremendous pressure and stress. I was running 2 jobs at the same time, and I realized that all of that was not worth what I had experienced, and that my relationships with the people that are dear and near to me was very, very important. And I still feel the same way about my relationships. Work is just another means of getting something that you would like to get or enjoy, or you would want to progress in. But I've taken a few steps back and realized that life is short and life is precious. And I'm thankful every day, that I pray every morning, that I thank God that I have life.
So during your strokes, did you ever go through surgery or anything like that?
No. So, like I said, there's the 3 types of stroke, and then there's the 3rd type, which is the hemorrhagic stroke. Basically, that's bleeding on the brain, caused from a clot, and normally then they would operate on that on a patient. Not always, because most people that go through the 3rd type of stroke never survive the stroke. They basically are sometimes pronounced brain dead because of the bleeding on the brain, and they're not able to get to the bleeding quick enough. In my case, there was a clot. They could not still, to this day, determine where the clot originated from. I had all the tests done to determine where did this clot originate from, and they couldn't find it. So my tending specialist basically had put it down to my stress levels that had caused the clot. I had no surgery or cuts or anything, other than taking a lot of blood from me, and that's about it. Yeah.
Right. So I'm very sure a few weeks from now, you wouldn't be speaking to me the way you're speaking to me now.
Sure.
Right. So how exactly was it when you're basically in your final hours in the hospital before, it was determined that, the stroke is over, this is the final season?
Once they had told me, listen, you've had a stroke, and basically there and then my journey started, and I'm still on that journey. I still have occupational therapy, speech therapy that I have to go to, and it's basically having to learn, because my right side was completely paralyzed. I had to be taught to walk again. I was taught to be able to brush my teeth. I couldn't use my right hand. Everything I was doing was with my left hand. I couldn't shave. So everything that you knew that you could do, now I couldn't do, and I needed help for that. So I'm still going for therapy. My therapy has been over a year now, and it depends. It's also dependent on the patient, whether you want to get better as well. There must be a willingness to want to work at what you've got to work at. My therapists were amazing, and they're sometimes very hard on you, because there were times that I felt discouraged, emotional. So I had to work with occupational therapists, speech therapists, physiotherapists, and I had a psychologist work with me to help me deal with this new reality. And it's been a journey, like I said, and I'm still on that journey. But I'm so grateful and thankful to God that I am where I am right now.
Right. So did this, I'm guessing that it also had an impact on some of the activities you used to do, like driving and all that. So wait, before you got into the stroke, what career were you in exactly?
Yes, okay. I was working for a large corporate in the IT. I was working in the IT world, and the level at which I worked at was very senior level. So I worked with senior managers and executives and CEOs and CFOs, and I basically was an account director for the accounts that I looked after. Plus, I also managed a team that reported into me, who had their own accounts, and we looked after a certain type of portfolio. That was from a work perspective, and then I used to drive, of course, and I used to cycle because I loved cycling, and I cycled for many, many, many years. But that all came to an abrupt stop when it happened. So I couldn't work. I couldn't drive. Up until today, I still can't drive. I'm not allowed to drive. Medically, I'm not been given the green light to drive yet. I will be reassessed only at the end of the year of towards November, December, whether I will reassess whether I am able to drive. I was at first unable to cycle, but I've managed to cycle now again. But most of my training has been on an indoor trainer, and of course I've gone and ventured outside, but with friends who are really supportive of what I'm doing, and they have supported me in going out also on the road.
So what is a lesson, like a major lesson that this journey has taught you so far?
Sure. It probably is that, like I said, life is short and life is precious, and it's one gift and one life you've given, and that you've got to make the most of it. Family, friends, church friends are extremely important. And I look at life very differently, especially with the type of time we're living in, looking at world events and where we are in the world. Everything's happening at a fast pace. It's taught me to slow down and be thankful for the things I've got and the things that I receive. And my journey is one of gratitude. And through this whole process, I'm able to also, which is probably one of the most encouraging things for me, is that while I'm been going to More Heal Clinic for my therapy, the doctor that is attending me and the physiotherapists that I've been working with have asked me and encouraged me to spend time with other patients who have experienced the same type of experience that I have, and it's talking to them, encouraging them, praying with them, and it's been a blessing. I sometimes walk out there more blessed than what I think I'm doing for the other person.
So what is the difference between the man you are today and the man you were before your faith was tried?
The man I was before was one of work, need to provide for my family. I would do things not realizing that it can cost me, and it can cost me dearly. Spending too much time with things that were not relevant, and spending too much time with people who actually at the end of the day don't really care about you. It's all about the money, the targets, the plans, the budgets. And that I've always been in the church. I've always been a Christian. I've always tried to do what God has asked of me. Not me trying, knowing that I have to bring my part, of course, but that God, through His Spirit, leads me and guides me and prompts me when I'm on a journey and I reach a point that I need to make decisions that could affect my life, other people, or my eternal salvation. I've always been aware of that. But it's even more of a reality that I am living right now. That reality that I am here because of Him, because of what He's done for me, because every day I know that He is bringing healing into my life. One of the most amazing things that happened with me was with Easter weekend. We were at one of our church rallies, and the call was made to the audience if there are anyone or any people that would like to be anointed. And I thought to myself, this is what I want to do. And just to keep it short, that I was anointed. I remember the pastor praying for me, and I walked down from the stage, and I went and sat down in my pew, in the chair, in the pew. And immediately, I felt this unbelievable sense of peace come over me. And for a whole year, I felt, the only way I can explain it to you, I would wake up in the morning feeling ill. I didn't feel well. I didn't feel good. And for the first time, that feeling was totally gone away. I wake up now in the morning feeling fine. I feel good. I feel I can take on the day. I don't feel sick. I had in my right arm, like I said, I had paralysis. So I had a constant heavy feeling in this arm, and that heavy feeling was gone, completely gone. There was already improvement in my speech, because previously I would start slurring and wouldn't be able to hold this conversation that we are having now. So I'm thankful to God that He's brought me this far, and I am a different person because of the experience I've had, in that I've been given another chance, and I'm so grateful that I can get to tell my story and share my story with others who have gone through the same thing.
So, what is your advice to viewers who are currently going through many different difficulties, trials? So what is your advice to them?
We all experience challenges and crucibles, differently, and every single one of us gets faced with certain challenges that come our way. There were many times that I lay in the hospital on my bed, and especially at night time when things sort of quiet down, and you can kind of rest and sort of gather your thoughts of what happened during the day and how you got through the day. But then you start thinking about, I think, the real things that matter in life. Where am I? Why am I here? Why did this thing happen to me? Is there a reason why it happened? And I have come to the conclusion, and I always have, that God places you at a place where you can make a difference in somebody's life. You're never there for no reason. You never meet somebody for no reason. And you may be the only person that person comes in contact with, that you are able to share with them the love of Christ, what He's done for you. It's basically you get to introduce God to another person. And you might be the only person, because you meet people that I don't meet, and I meet people you don't meet. And we are given that opportunity. So for me, it is, no matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing, that there is always an opportunity to meet somebody that you can introduce them to Christ.
Okay. So I know this is a random question, but is there someone you met that you basically introduced to Christ during your journey?
I would say they were in my sessions that I had with the therapists. They would normally have a group session. So it's basically patients that have had similar experiences, and then normally would happen on a Tuesday afternoon. I can still remember that, on a Tuesday afternoon, where we would sit in a group and we get to talk about the week that you've had, the previous week. So in that, I always made sure that somewhere in that, in my discussion with the group, that I would share something about God and His goodness, and I am where I am now because of Him, and He's helped me with this challenge and that challenge. And it's amazing. I was really amazed that there were so many people that responded warmly to that kind of discussion. I had two friends which I met in the clinic. Sadly, both those gentlemen passed away. But I thank God that He gave me the opportunity to talk to them about Him, with them. The one gentleman who basically had a fungus on the brain, and it caused him paralysis. Caused him paralysis of the whole body, and he couldn't talk. He could hardly eat. Eventually, he was on a life support system to help him breathe, and me talking to him while he was in that state, he would just open up his eyes, like blink, and say, "Thank you," or I knew he was hearing me and responding to me. And the feeling that I got was that here was a man who couldn't help himself, was busy dying, and that I had an opportunity to share God with him before and during his time at Moore Hill Clinic. The one experience I've had, which was now last week, 3 weeks ago, I was asked to encourage and talk to a patient that had a stroke. I arrived there. He was 17 years old and he had a stroke. And when I saw Mickey, it was as though I was lying in the bed where Mickey was, because what he had is what I had. And since then, I have seen him again, and Mickey is doing very well. He's on the journey to recovery. He's positive, and also there, just sharing God with him, saying that I'm a believer and that I'm praying for him, are things which encourage me to keep going.
Okay, so do you have any final thoughts for our viewers?
Yes. Many people talk about a stroke very talk about it as though it's something that happens. You have paralysis, that you can't use certain parts of your body. But what most people forget is the silent, what they call the silent challenges, and that is your speech, your how it affects the actual brain, and that it's a total journey that you have to get through. Some people don't make it through the journey. Some people give up. I saw patients that were on the way to recovery, and at some point they just give up. They give up. They say, "No, I can't do this anymore. I just cannot do this anymore." And then they basically go backwards. And I would say the one thing is that people out there must be patient with people that have had stroke. Encouragement. I found also one of the things that really helped me to get through what I went through is being able to talk about it, be honest about it. Yes, there's a lot of it is hard work, but trusting in God and allowing God to work in your life, and sharing what you're going through and being honest about what you're going through, and having a village around you is what actually got me through what I'd been through. Family, friends, church friends, people praying for you, and encouraging you to keep going on.
All right. Wait, I forgot to ask this question. So what verse kept you encouraged during this time frame?
Oh, yeah. Actually, there's actually a number of verses, but one of the verses that really was always sort of top of mind, if I can put it that way, and that's always Romans 14 verse 20. For meat destroy not the work of God. All things indeed are pure. Oh, no, sorry, that's not the one I wanted. Romans 8, sorry, Romans 8. I beg your pardon. Romans 8, verse 28. And we know that all things work together for God, to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. And Matthew 8:28 also says, I am with you always to the very end. And I know that God is with me to the very end. And he never leaves us. He's never left us. We must just reach out to him constantly. And he is there to help us get through this journey.
And just like that, that is the end of our episode. Thank you, Brother Stan, for coming
Thank you.
through.
Thank you.
Viewers, stay tuned. Thank you for watching. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe. And see you for our next episode. Call us, stay tuned. Bye now.